I normally used to come to MS University only for the conferences organized by the Government Department. This is the first time I come to represent this English department. Because I stayed in the Government Department in comparatively. So my interest is basically in translation. So I have been translating from Tamil to English, English to Tamil. So where I come across range of materials, and that's why my interest also is quite varied. So in the department I teach Shakespeare and Victorian literature and everything, but my personal interest is Tamil literature, Tolkapiam or Dalit literature and everything. So I don't normally mix two things, but sometimes I also realize that students must know what is happening outside that subject. Especially after I read Ganesh Devi's English Studies in India, I realize that they should have some kind of interaction between disciplines. So it is only in that light I have planned this lecture. I thank Professor Prof for giving me this opportunity to dig into my old stuff, archival stuff that I collected in 2015. In 2015, I was on study leave to work on a project called Caste and Colonial Fusion. So, as part of the project, I collected a lot of materials from the Igor archives, and I collected some from Roja Muthiah Library in Chennai. So, based on that, I prepared a small project for the IIT Madras. So, as a continuation, I did this presentation. See, the title of the presentation is Theatre of Colonial Democracy. I made a small change into the theatre of colonial democracy. Into means I expect all of you to just enter into the theatre, because when I use the word theatre, then definitely it has to be some kind of spectatorship. Okay. So first let me explain the context. It's going to be a reflection on the MLC debates. MLC debates, State Legislative Council. Okay. So member of Legislative Council, they were all of the MLCs. Okay. And this MLC was abolished in several states. Of the 22 states, only 6 states have MLC. So even in Tamil Nadu, there were times when it was abolished and then it was revived, and then it was there till 1986. Okay. But it was not considered as significant as the state assembly. So it was almost regarded as a kind of a dummy thing where people make opinions and comments. So there I see the function of, I just started asking about the function of this MLC post. It somehow remains a honorary post, and where people do make a record of issues. Okay. But I wonder whether it had any impact in the social political domain. Okay. So that's where I see the significance of MLC as a kind of theatrical space. And this MLC debates were actually taking place in Ooty. It never happened in Chennai. So these debates were placed in a context where the colonial officers were comfortable in a climate where they can just spend some time. So just as our former Chief Minister goes to Nadu, the colonial officers went to Ooty, and then where they used to have this MLC debates. Okay. So now that Ooty becomes the kind of a theatrical space. Okay. Now the context in which these debates became important was the late 19th and early 20th century. During the late 19th and early 20th centuries, a lot of voices came demanding nationhood, at the same time demanding identity. Okay. So there was a stiff opposition between the movement demanding nationalism and the movement demanding identity. Okay. So in particular, I refer to the movement of the depressed classes. Okay. See, when we talk about movement of the depressed classes, it has a very long history. So, unlike other colonial history, as far as India is concerned, East India Company or British Empire never had any difficulty in occupying the country because they had natives to help, and those natives are mostly from the untouchables. Okay, so this was an issue that was addressed by Dr. Ambedkar in several of his writings, and that's why he also raised the question: are untouchables troops of the British? And then he answered no. In what Gandhian Congress respected untouchables. So, in 1789, the untouchables submitted a petition to the British government saying that we served you as butlers, we served you as horsemen, we served you as cooks. Okay, we have done so much for the East India Company, but when we meet certain crisis, you don't come and help us. Okay, so we give this humble petition because our land has been taken away by the dominant caste people, so we have to intervene and then do something about it. Okay, this was the first petition in 1789. Then again, a similar petition was submitted in 1810. Again, it was about a particular local gunda who was vandalizing the area where untouchables were living. Okay, so it was a petition submitted to the colonial government demanding action against that particular don. Okay. So these sources are available. I am telling you because you may be interested to do this kind of research in future. So these sources are available in Roja Muthiah Library. So if you go to Roja Muthiah Library, you ask for T.P. Kamalnathan collection. So T.P. Kamalnathan was a sub-inspector. Police, he retired as sub-inspector, and his father was a close associate of Pandit Ayodhya. So he had a personal collection of all the conference details, then resolutions passed in the conferences, speeches, presidential speeches submitted at the conferences. So he submitted all the details, all the valuable data to Roja Muthiah because his sons and daughters do not add any value to it because they have gone to engineering, science and other background. Okay. So this happens even in the case of the one who collected the writings of Pandit Ayodhya. His family was not interested in. See, for the family, it's actually a burden. It's a dust actually. So I am happy that it has reached the research center. Okay. Then during the period 1901 and 1909, okay, you have the journal Indian Review. That Indian Review has a continuous debate on caste question. Okay. So you have Maharaj and Bharatwada writing about untouchability, and you have Nadezhan from the non-Brahmin movement, and you have Father Andrews, and you also have Annipesan writing in that. So you have regular writings in the Indian Review which appeared in the early 20th century. So caste become a national question in the early 20th century. Okay. And among the writers who contributed for this Indian Review, almost half of them were coming from the depressed class background. Okay. And it was almost at the same time there were also magazines coming. You have Kamalan, which was a magazine run by Pandit Ayodhya. So it came from 1901 to 1907, and after his demise, the journal continued to appear with the editorship of his son. So it came up to 1914. So this along with Tamilan, there was also another magazine called Parayan. This was run by Tata Srinivasan. Srinivasan, I am sure you know, who went to Roundtable Conference along with Ambedkar. So this magazine Parayan appeared between 1893 to 1900. You have complete collections of Tamilan in Prajapati Library if you want to have access to the actual journal. But if you want the compiled version, then you have Jnana Aloysius has compiled 3 volumes of Pandit writing, published by Palaikkottai St. Xavier's College. Okay. And I just tell you 2 incidents to highlight the kind of tension that was there between the Indian National Congress and the depressed class. One is you have the collector Tirunelveli. Tirunelveli was the collector of Chengalpet in 1872, and after that he was posted in Bellary and several places. And Tirunelveli was personally interested in collecting data regarding the stigma of untouchability and the landlessness in particular of untouchables. Okay. And he collected all the data regarding the landlessness of the untouchables, and then he submitted the report to Queen Victoria. Based on the report, the British government gave away lands for the untouchables, which is called Panchami lands, okay, which is quite popular. Now, Sundaranar continuously published news articles. So it was more than a news, it was a campaign. It was a campaign against Collector Tirunelveli. So the demand was that you should transfer Tirunelveli to the north, because he was such an atrocious and aggressive colonial officer. He has to be posted either in Pune or Madhya Pradesh, where there is violence creeping in. Okay. So you can put down violence with the help of this kind of a strict officer. And almost at the same time, just 1 day or 2 days after that, Parayan magazine published a counter news. In Parayan magazine, they published the actual data of what he did. See, he did many welfare measures for the untouchables. He was instrumental in establishing schools, hostels, and he was instrumental in establishing medical welfare for the poor people. Okay. So, if Sundaranar is focusing on this particular comment here, asking the colonial government to transfer him, it is not definitely against the collector government here, but they were quite unhappy about the welfare pressure that they were having. And finally, he was retired. Okay, so the campaign went in favor of the depressed class. So another important event was the Indian Civil Service examination. Right from the late 19th century, Indian National Congress, headed by Dadabhai Naoroji, they demanded that Indian Civil Service examination has to be conducted in India. One center has to be there in India, because earlier there was only one center in London. So if you want to become ICS officer, you have to go to London, clear the exam, and then come back and then become magistrate or collector, whatever. So Indian National Congress took it as a kind of a national issue, and then they demanded that one more center has to be established in India. So it can be either in Bombay or Calcutta, anywhere. Okay. But it has to be within India. To that, the Parayan magazine published a counter news saying that the kind of atrocities that is taking place in the village side was actually taken up by the dominant literate caste Hindus. So, if you have a center in India, then these dominant caste people who are already ritually powerful, they will clear the exam, they will come back with some official portion, so they will dominate further. So, you should not conduct. ICSSR exam in India. And the magazine maintained that we want only British officers to rule us. We don't want Indians. And the campaign continued for 3 years. So all the news items are available in summary form in Egmore archives in the very general hall. It's called Native Newspaper Report. So it's all compiled in year wise, 1893, 1894. For a year there is one volume. So each volume carries summaries of local newspaper articles and published in the particular year. So it was only from there they collected these details. And finally what happened? The Indian National Congress headed by Dadabhai Naoroji submitted a petition to the colonial government saying that the exam has to be conducted in India, and in which there were 300 signatories. And the very next day, Dr. Nadu conducted again another meeting in the same Victoria Hall in Chennai. There, more than 3,000 people signed and submitted the petition, and then finally the government gave up that idea. So it never happened. So to that extent, no, I am giving you all these details only to tell you that the kind of power that the depressed class had over the colonial government, and the colonial government had to resort to the demands of the depressed class. But what happened in the year 1910 was the British government imposed a ban against the entry of untouchables. Okay. So that was quite interesting, because when they had this much power, then how can that happen? So that was the time that caste Hindus decided to join British Army, because there was also crisis in the British economy, who were not able to fund for the army, and the World War I was brewing up. So to manage this crisis, they somehow had to listen to the dominant caste, numerically dominant people. That's why they imposed a ban on the entry. Okay. Now, these are the historical data that we, if we want, we can get from archives, or now you have internet. If you type, then you can get into any archives. You can get a lot of material. But the problem is, what do we have to do with the material? Okay. We have so much data. Now, there are no takers. Whether I should present it in the form of an essay, or whether I should speak to you in the form of lecture, whatever. So, how will it reach to the new generation, especially for the students? Okay. So, there I get the point from Dr. Ambedkar, who made a presentation. Next. Yeah. So, who made a presentation on caste in India in 1916 in Columbia University. It was a conference organized by the Anthropology Department of Columbia University. So, where he begins his lecture, it is my turn now, this evening, to entertain you. I made that bold. To entertain you. See, he is talking about a serious issue, but he said, I am going to entertain you as best as I can with a paper on caste in India. I need hardly remind you of the complexity of the subject. Subtler minds and abler pens than mine have been brought to the task of unraveling the mysteries of caste. But unfortunately, it still remains in the domains of the unexplained, not to say the ununderstood. It is a local problem, but one capable of much wider mischief that we are seeing now. Caste is becoming an international issue among the diasporas. Okay. So, what actually interested me in this particular speech of Ambedkar is Ambedkar's awareness of the audience, because he is talking among the scholars in Columbia University who may not be interested in such crisis. So, he did not want to take a very serious tone in the lecture. So, that's why he wants to entertain the audience. Now, I have given you details regarding the tension between Indian National Congress and the depressed class right from the 1880s to 1910. Okay. Now, in 1990, surprisingly, British government passed a resolution stating that India must be given freedom. See, remember, Gandhi became president of the Indian National Congress only in 1924. So, even before Gandhi became president of the Indian National Congress, British Parliament decided to give freedom for India. Then what are we talking when we talk about the freedom struggle or whatever? Okay. So, now when British government passed a resolution, the debate in the Parliament was, are we going to hand over this power to the dominant caste, or are we going to actually hand over the power to someone who will be just? Okay. So, following this debate, Anglicists raised the demand that India should not be given freedom now, because the situation is not conducive, because there is so much tension that we have seen between the depressed class and the Indian National Congress. So, Indian National Congress is not the sole representative of India. Okay. This was the argument levelled against the resolution by Anglicists. The Anglicists include Macaulay and others. Okay. On the other side, Orientalists demanded that India must be given freedom. And the Orientalists are those people who translated the Vedic and other Upanishad thing into English. Okay. So, the tension that you have seen in the Indian context got reflected in British Parliament in 1990. Okay. So, now the stage is set for enacting this kind of a character. Okay. So now, keeping all this detail in mind, we have to raise the fundamental question about the birth of the non-Brahmin movement. The non-Brahmin movement emerged in 1916, and later it became Justice Party. Now the question is, looking at these data, now we have a very sincere doubt whether the non-Brahmin movement actually came against the Brahmins or against the depressed class. Because what actually happens during the late 19th century was a tough fight between the Brahmins and the Indian National Congress and the depressed class. So, the dominant caste people, the dominant caste non-Brahmins were politically powerless but economically powerful. So, they wanted to capture this space, and then that's how the non-Brahmin movement also came into being. Okay. So, now this kind of an understanding comes to us only if we collate these data with what actually happened in the early part of the 20th century. Now, in the MLC debates, who are the MLC members? Next slide. You have MC Raja, you have N. Sivaraj, he was the all India president of the SCST Federation, you have Pettamala Srinivasan, you have Swami Sagajananda, then you have Madarapillai, Veerayyan, Guruswami. They were all very significant leaders in the depressed class movement. Okay. And you also have nationalists in the MLC. You have C.P. Ramasamaiyer, you have Satyamurthy, the leader of the Tamil Congress. Okay. And you have Krishnaswamy Iyer, and you also have Dravidians. Okay. So now the Dravidians are less in number compared to the other group. Okay. So you can see that MLC debates, the fight that took place in the MLC debates was almost between the Indian National Congress and this depressed class. So which was actually a continuation of what actually happened in the 19th century. So two colonial officers represented the position of chairman, president in the MLC debates that I collected. Okay, one is Arthur Knapp, the other one is Campbell. Okay. So, how did I get this idea of making a drama out of this data? Okay. That idea came because only through these two sources. One is a non-fictional writing by Russian writer Alexander Solzhenitsyn. Okay. The other one is the British playwright Tom Stoppard, Travesties. Okay. Now, when you see this first one image, Lenin in Zurich, that's the title of the book. Okay. On the cover, you see Lenin in the red background. So, you normally expect the book talking about the Lenin's communism. So, what Solzhenitsyn says in the course of the book of that, it is what you see in red color is not the communist color. It was the reflection of the red light in the bar in which Lenin was taking place. Because before the October Revolution, Lenin was in Zurich. Okay. So he was in the capitalist hub where he was thinking of, where he was planning this revolution. So he was not completely against capitalism. There was a capitalist core behind this communist Lenin. Okay. So Solzhenitsyn was trying to hit at that idea. That's why he preferred this color. Okay. Other editions did not have this color. Okay. The other one, Travesties, was a story where you have Lenin, James Joyce, and the Tristan Zara, the one who floated the Stalinist movement, and you also have the character of Oscar Wilde's importance of being honest. Okay, so they all meet together, and then there is one character, Carr. Okay, he recollects his early acquaintance. Now he has become very old, so he recollects his early acquaintance with Lenin, James Joyce, and other people in the early 20th century. So the play was written in the late 20th century. So where Carr was recollecting his personal acquaintance with these revolutionaries who were living a kind of a luxurious capitalist life. So, so it is only from these two texts that I got this idea of looking at the theatricality of this data. So now I think we can enter into this drama. I have some 3-4 sample pieces. Okay. The first one, it's about irregularities took place in the election in the Puducherry village panchayat. Let me just read. I have to read the names, then only you will know how different people interacted. Rao Bagadur Srinivasan, Ratana Srinivasan, he was the one who raised that issue. Will the honorable law member be pleased to state, number one, whether it is a fact that at the present panchayat court election held at public place, a Chavadi in Puducherry village, Valaja Taluk, North Arcot district, the presiding officer arranged the Brahmins in the central hall, non-Brahmins at a back veranda, and Adi Dravida at a distance of 38 feet from the northwest corner of the Chavadi and out of the west end limit of the Brahmin state. Second, whether it is a fact that such arrangement kept the Adi Dravidas out of view of other communities, thereby depriving them of vote from non-Brahmins. Then, whether it is a fact that Adi Dravidas were kept in the standing for more than an hour. They were made to stand for more than an hour. Whether it is a fact that while some of them went about to shelter and quench their thirst, the presiding officer thoroughly called upon them vote for the candidate. Now, there is an intervention from Ratan Sabhabari Madriyar. The answer says that the election was held in the village Chavadi, and for want of sufficient accommodation, some of the voters had to remain behind the Chavadi and some in front of it. May know if it is not duty of the presiding officer to arrange a place where there will be sufficient accommodation for all people to take part in the election. Then Campbell responds, certainly, I presume that the officer made the best arrangement possible. Then Ratan Sabhabari Madriyar. The answer says, for want of accommodation, some people were made to stand. Does the government think that sufficient arrangement for accommodation was made? Campbell. Evidently, I cannot give further information. So, does the government expect people standing behind the Chavadi, which I take it will be closed by 4 walls, can take part really in the election? Campbell. I have no information whether the Chavadi was enclosed by 4 walls or not. So, the kind of response from the colonial officer shows that he was too conscious of the caste issue that is prevalent there and he does not want to address. Okay. And there is another incident. Even if you rotate, they can't read. Don't worry. This is an incident relating to taking water from a well in the police station campus. Okay. So there is a well in the Suramangalam police station near Salem Junction. So where the untouchables were not allowed to take water. So that was the issue. Now, member Veerayan is raising that issue in the MLC debate. Mr. Veerayan, will the Honorable Home Member be pleased to state whether it's a fact that the members of the depressed classes are prevented from taking water from public well in the compound of the Suramangalam police station, Salem district? And if so, whether the government will be pleased to make inquiries into that matter? Answer was given in writing. The well in the compound of the Suramangalam police station, Salem district, is intended for the use of police staff and is not a public well. Remember. Okay. Then, Veerayan raised. With reference to class A, may I know whether any exception is made in the government order passed on 25th August 1924 to the effect that public cannot have free access to wells provided the police lines when there is water scarcity. In normal days it's fine. What about water scarcity? At least those times they can be allowed. Then Arthur Knapp says, I am afraid I do not remember the terms of the government order. If the honourable member wishes me to interpret a particular government order, I must ask for notice. Mr. Veerayan, may I point out that the government order which was passed on the 25th August 1924 was to the effect that all classes should have free access to the public well, whether they are either in municipal area or in police area. Wherever it is, when there is scarcity, they should be allowed. Then Arthur Knapp, may I point out that it is not a public well. That's what I keep telling. It's not a public well. The answer to the question says so. Then there is one Adinarayana Chettiar. He intervenes and then he responds. Though it is not a public well, if all but the depressed classes have access to it, will the government be pleased to give instructions to allow the depressed classes also to use the well? Then Arthur Knapp says, I do not see any foundation on the factors for the suggestion that the non-depressed classes have access to it. That seems to be a presumption of my honourable friend. Then Arthur Knapp continues, I am prepared to say at once that any facilities given to any other class of people will be given to the depressed class also. The next. Now, Veerayan intervenes. Mr. Veerayan says, okay, this is very important. May I know whether the government are aware that the police who belong to the depressed class also do not have free access to the well because it is used by other classes. So even among the police, the depressed class are not allowed. Okay. So it is not a question of public or police. So even within the police, depressed class are not allowed to get access to the well. Then Arthur Knapp closes the whole debate. If my honourable friend says so, I am quite prepared to inquire. So the debate ends there. So I skip the next one. Yeah. Go to the next one. This is about Kalpati Car Festival. Okay. So we know the issues in Car Festival in several parts of Tamil Nadu. This is one such. Mr. R. Veerayan. Will the Honorable Home Member be pleased to state whether it is a fact that a Malabar Special Force came to Palakkad and they were stationed to keep the Yelavas, the members of the untouchable classes, out during the time of the recent Kalapati Car Festival disturbance? And second, if the government have no information with reference to class, whether they will call for the information, then answer in writing. A section of the Malappuram Special Force was stationed at Kalapati to prevent breach of the peace. Then Veerayan intervenes. Mr. Veerayan says, may I know why a special force was necessary when the people belonging to depressed classes wanted to pass through highways or the map? The answer is already in the printed paper. A special force was brought in to prevent a possible breach of peace. Then Diwan Bahadur, Krishnan Iyer intervenes and says, may I know whether the special force was brought there before the commencement of the festival or after the order was passed? Then autograph. On that, I have no particular information, but I take it that it was before the order was passed. Then Krishnan Iyer. Did the government or divisional officer anticipate that breach would take place? Order. The divisional officer had reasons to think that a breach might take place. Then Prabhakaran Kappan. Is it not a fact that a contingent of reserve police force at the time of Caste festival is brought every year to guard the Kalapati Agragaram? Then Rao Sahib Gopalan. If the depressed class people behind Kalapati Agragaram street want to pass through the street on business, and if they are prevented from doing so, will the government come to the rescue or the not? I do not think government order has gone into that detail. It is in general terms. Okay. So again, that's what I was trying to help you understand. The colonial officers are too conscious of the caste question, and then they played safely in support of the caste leaders, and that's why I told you, see, until it was the time they imposed a ban on the entry of untouchables into army, and then they had to take decision only in favor of the caste leaders. Okay, so that's why it remains a kind of a light drama where they know that issue is important, but still they ignore. Now, you will understand the theatricality of the whole thing only if you compare with other debate. I can't read this. This is really starts from 361 and then it goes up to 387. Such a long debate about removal of a statue of a colonial officer in Mount Road, Nail statue, because Nail was the one who was involved in the Sipai mutiny, violence against Indians. Okay, and then he was later attacked and then dead. Okay, so British government wanted to have his statue to honor his involvement in Sipai mutiny, but Indians wanted to remove the statue because it is a dishonor for the Indians. Okay. Now that became a huge debate, and then for hours, days they kept talking about it. But for all these issues, it did not go beyond 5 or 6 conversations. For the issues of local and issues coming to caste, they did not prolong. Okay. So now I think you will understand how the whole MLC debate with regard to caste question ended in a kind of a theatrical way. Next. So I conclude by saying actors of history, they all, their responses are not spontaneous response, it's all scripted responses on the caste question, shows the theatre of colonial democracy. Now we have a real problem when we turn towards historical data. See, we deny history, we challenge history, at the same time we also enter into history. So it's a paradoxical. So the best way to understand is to connect it with the temple entry movement. Those who actually fight against the ban of entry, okay, those who want to enter into temple, people want to conduct temple entry movement The people want to conduct temple and movement not to worship God, but to go have a say against that kind of an attitude. But also there is also a possibility of asserting the right to religion. Okay, so both aspects are there. In the same way, when we try to enter into history, we also try to have a climb over history, but we also know that there is certain amount of fictionality involved in history. Okay, so that is the major difference when you enter into history from a marginal perspective. You become too conscious. Okay. So in the classroom, if we take these data and then explain these data, then how long, how far it will reach the students. So that's why I always find some kind of a theatrical dimension. I try to enact it, definitely not on the stage, only in the classroom. So that's how I performed Waiting for Visa in the classroom, and then I performed Annihilation of Caste as a drama. I performed Portrait of the Artist, some 2-3 scenes. So, so theatre, I think, should be part of the teaching pedagogy, and that's what I have been doing. And when I say teaching should incorporate theatre, I am also too conscious of theatre as a vehicle. Okay, because we also had a theatre professor called Professor Rajani. Okay, I don't know how many of you are aware of that. Yeah, Professor Rajani, and so he always had a fair-skinned upper caste. Okay, so I was a little uncomfortable with his caste and his choice of place. So I always take caste from those people who are rejected from the theatre elective. Okay, because when they register for the course, they have an audition. They find out whether you are able to speak good English, and then they reject you. So I take only those students who are rejected, and then I use them in my theatre. Okay, and how do I manage to do theatre with these students who are not able to speak English? Number one, I made dialogues chorus so that they don't have the fear. Another thing, sometimes I ask the students to sit among the audience, just tell the dialogue. So we should only have the theatrical effect. So only with this kind of thing, I feel very interesting and also very fruitful if we make all the serious data also in the kind of a theatrical dimension. Okay, thank you.
Presentation. We share the same story, and that is where everything begins. There were many stories that were shared. We started off by talking about some of those archived materials, and we all need to think about at what point in history he went there and developed those materials, and the way in which it spoke to us now, and I'm sure there would have been a way in which it would be speaking to his students in the class if they were teaching it. And of course that very interesting montage or collage, I must say, of Lenin and travesties, that I think really did fit the bill in a way, because as I was listening to your presentation, I was also thinking about the possible travesty or even absurdity of even discussing caste in the assembly, in the MLC meetings. If you go by the comparisons that you made, 30-40 pages on whether you need to demolish or erect a statue, and then 4 pages of this debate. You mentioned Lenin. We have a whole lot of ideologies in our country battling for space. And personally, what I've felt is we have always shied away from discussing caste. You can have a book titled Annihilation of Caste. But we seldom discuss this. I don't think we have had a political establishment which would have actually taken up this issue and really engaged with it. I've always felt, as a person coming from Kerala, I've always felt that the Communist Party of India has failed miserably on this point. It's very easy because I know this is going live. See, it's very easy to talk about class because how did communism come to India? You were engaging class, and that's what Marx was doing. And we did not have class. So it's a very interesting detour that you take. And you look at any novel or any literary text that has emerged, you wouldn't have a sustained engagement with this question. And we have never addressed. Anandamurthy, for example, would say that caste is very important. Anandamurthy, who wrote Samskara, he says that we need to assert our caste identity. I remember this, that back there, statement like this. So this is a question that really does come in, and it's a very, very important text, to use the word that I used yesterday. It's a very important text of empire. This is the way in which caste becomes a text of empire, and I think we seem to be continuing with that text. And I think the point that he was trying to make is that we need to engage with that text. And the challenge and the question is this: how are we going to engage with it? Thank you very much for answering. So, questions, shoot your questions again.
So we have some online questions, and dear participants, do you have any questions?
I came only towards the end. It is thoroughly astonished me to collect the materials, showcase it to the present generation. Well, you said theatrical might be colonial hypocrisy. It might be colonial hypocrisy, and they understand things, what they try, what they pretend you have not understood. So that is the thing. But I just want to, whether we have included, I feel sorry that I came only to say, whether we have included the Retentionist Universal's speeches, then it is fine. Then the Retentionist Universal, in fact, that itself would rather speak volumes and volumes of how that we have been muted, even in so legislation. This legislation itself, it is the voice has to be audible, and we need to raise our voice. But how it has been muted, and how the colonial masters kept their silence in a particular state. It was well worked out. It's a well worked out, and this is a kind of a reading that young researchers need from the so-called official documents. And these official documents, reading with a new interpretation, will definitely help us understand the social evils or the injustice found in the society, perhaps pre-colonial, colonial, and of course post-colonial. Thank you, Prof. Sundaranar, and I don't know how many of you have known this fact. Dr. Sundaranar is the editor of Dalit literature in Tamil by Oxford. Dalit literature in Tamil, along with the present MP, Mr. Ravi Kumar. So why I'm telling this is he has the validity and say this is his identity.
See, when I say that the colonial officers were hypocrite in the way of dealing with the issue of caste, see, for a theatre person, there are possibilities. Say, for example, you can read the same dialogue from two ways. You can read Campbell's or Knapp's dialogue as someone who is very strategic. Okay, then you can read the dialogue on that I have no particular information, but I take it that it was before the order was passed, and that only particular. But sometimes, if you want to interpret that, even colonial officers were afraid of handling, you have to bring in the jittery. Okay. On that note, I have no particular information, but I take it that it was before the order was passed. In the tone down panning, then and the hypocrisy in the dominant over. So it will become a different, it will reveal a different kind of character. And the theatre will give you this kind of range of interpretative possibilities.
How did the debates in Colonial Tamil Nadu's Madras Legislative Council shape the theatre of democracy during the time? And what insights can we gain from these reflections in the present day?
That was the last slide. See, we read this kind of a drama taking place in the MLC debates, not just to understand the history. Okay, that's what I kept telling. Okay, when we have the data, we collected all the data. Are we supposed to just write an essay or write a monograph, write research, apply for some project? Then how will it help us put across the idea to the next generation? Is a question. So there I think theatre helps me to just involve the students. Now to relate to our last play, okay, which is what Professor Hariharan narrated. Okay. So it is only for this idea we are actually debating. We share the same story, and that is where everything begins. Okay. Same thing is happening even in assemblies, in parliament. Okay. You can closely watch. It's all high drama, and sometimes I see even in university syndicate meetings. Okay. Some 30 years back, I used to see a syndicate meeting starting around 10 o'clock, and then it goes up to 10, 11, sometimes it goes up to midnight, 1 o'clock. Now, meetings start at 10 and then it closes by 12:30, and then they part for lunch. Okay. So, the things are changed because everything becomes a kind of a drama, and even before the meeting takes place, they plan well in advance. I pass this resolution, you support. And then you pass that resolution. So this kind of a settlement is happening. So it is happening everywhere. So I am saying that this just because it is 1924 doesn't mean that that is away from us. So it's happening around us, even in our own panchayat. Okay, it's happening in our university. Everywhere it's happening. Okay. So there is a kind of a theatricality in the way in which we respond to issues. Yes.
There are some questions and appreciations also. But the questions actually were already answered by you. Like
read the appreciation. No. Time has come. Panel discussion.